Yeah, I hope so. Actually,
I'm going to tell Jenny you said that.
I said you only got 2 hours left.
Are we on? Everybody ready on the left? Ready on the right?
I'm about to start singing.
It's a weird, instead of a deadline every day, it's a deadline every other day. The world is upside down. Presses aren't. It's being mailed. Half the people aren't getting their stuff in the mail.
Just now I got your text. I forgot my phone. I have to go back and get it. I stuck it on the charger.
That's all right. Yeah. Lots of Democrats got 2 3. Democrats was the bad. That was the trick. We've been printing Kitchen Migos newspapers. Come to find out that it's been up for 5 years. Every Friday. They hadn't been paid. Okay. Drop the check off. We're ready to go. And, just little things like that.
That's not going to work. Okay. Let the record show that it's about 8 minutes after 6. Can the audience hear me okay? Those in the back, can you hear me okay? I'll call to order the regular meeting of the Granite City Council of December the 12th, 2017. I'd like to call upon our good friend and the OG&E representative, if he would, to lead us in our invocation, and then I'd like to ask Council to lead us in our flag salute. So if you would please stand, those that can.
All right, let's pray. Father, we thank you for this wonderful day you've given to us. Lord, we thank you for your love, for your kindness. We ask you, God, those that are protecting on us on our behalf, that you would be with them and help them. We ask you, God, for our city manager, the city council, that you continue leading and guide them and direct them. God, let us encourage them and help them, be supportive. Lord, we thank you, God, for your love and your kindness that you show to us. Lord, let it bring glory to you in all that we say, all that we do. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne.
Here.
Councilmember Ruby. Here. Councilmember Hill.
Present.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Here.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Here. For the record, all members are present. We have a quorum. We kind of have a couple of special things this evening in our first order of business. We have a couple of presentations to make. I'm going to make my way down to the podium. I'd like to ask council members, city manager, to join me at the podium, please. Our first order of business is a presentation this evening for someone that some of you may know, some of you may not know, but a young man that lives in our community and has had a presence here at the county courthouse as an employee for some time, has kids that have gone to school. But a couple of weeks ago, there was an event that occurred here at City Hall that could have been a tragedy. And thanks to this young man and his quick actions, was not the tragedy that it could have been. I want to ask our city manager to share with you, the audience and our citizens, that day, and then we'll invite our special guest up here for a presentation. Tim, if you would.
Thank you, Mayor. About 3 weeks ago, we started working, contractors did, on the tuck pointing, sealing in the City Hall from all the leaks. And within a few hours, the company, it's called Carr Tuck Pointing, they're based out of Iowa, I believe, was here. Right before noon, I was getting ready to leave my office, and Umberto come running into City Hall and announced that somebody had just been electrocuted outside the back alley here in City Hall. Umberto was back there and witnessed a worker for the company who unfortunately was by himself and was in a scissor lift and going up delivering some tools to the top of the roof and got tangled up in some power lines. He was in real bad shape. Umberto come running in here, immediately got my attention. ran and got with Mr. Cook, and we both started speed dialing, trying to get a hold of Mr. Holliday, who gave the opening prayer here today, how apropos that was from OG&E. And we were calling everybody that we knew from OG&E, and within a few minutes, we got a hold of somebody to come in and shut the power off. I was out there, I was one of the first ones that got to witness it. This gentleman, who, by the way, is going to be fine. He's going to have some surgeries, skin grafts, several other things that happen as a result of making contact with those power lines. But when we first got out there, he was disoriented. He was talking about climbing down from the bucket, which is about 20, 25 feet up, and we were trying to calm him down. Unfortunately, he didn't speak English either, and he spoke whatever the Bosnian language was, and we found one of his coworkers to come around and tell him to sit down and be still. But I don't think if it had been for the quick thinking of Humberto, I mean, he kind of scared me a little bit, because he just came bolting into here talking about OG&E and getting the power shut down. But I honestly think, had he not had the presence of mind to come into City Hall and find somebody immediately and get this done, because the gentleman was disoriented and by himself over there, I think it could have been tragic. I think he could have had further issues. Luckily, we were able to get the power knocked off, and our fire and rescue, Chief Joins and his guys, Mark, you guys did an excellent job of getting this gentleman down once we got the power shut off and got him for his medical attention. But I had talked to the mayor earlier, and I really do feel like this is one of those times where one of our comrades, although he works for the county, but with his quick thinking and coming into City Hall and getting it to our attention, and not just getting our attention, but getting our attention to call OG&E, which is what we really needed to do, because the power, we have no ability just to shut the power line off. So, but saying that, I'm going to turn it over to the mayor now, and he can invite Humberto to come up to the front.
Humberto Vasquez, would you come forward, please? Folks, this is Humberto. To all whom these presents may come, greetings. Be it known that by recommendation of the Mayor of the City of Durant, recognizing the contribution of Mr. Vasquez to help an injured employee of car tuck pointing, Mr. Vasquez's observation and quick thinking led to the notification of public safety personnel and OG&E officials and saving the life of the injured employee. The office of the mayor and the council does hereby award to Humberto Vasquez this citizen commendation with all the rights and privileges thereunto belonging, and testimony whereof I fix my hand this 12th day of December 2017 in the state of Oklahoma in the United States of America. Humberto, God bless you, and thank you for who you are and what you did that day.
Thank you.
God bless. You want to make a speech? Okay.
Can council come in closer?
Sure. Tim,
We'll get you in the middle. We'll kind of get on your shoulder.
right here. Okay. Okay.
Everybody look right. Right
Okay.
here, small-headed guy. All right. Smile, Humberto. One more. Look right here. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Humberto, again. And I'm sure that young man, when he has the opportunity, will want to meet the guy that probably helped save his life.
We'd
Okay?
love to see it.
Yes. Thanks, Humberto.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir. A good model of humility, Humberto. Thank you. This evening, we're also recognizing the People First Industries. I want to invite Chip Weiner up, if he would, please. Some of you may know this guy from Southeastern, but he's now got a regular job, I think.
Got a real job.
Yeah, a real job. Don't tell the president we said that, okay? I think if you would indulge me again, as you know, I like to read the proclamations, and this proclamation, as others, will define the reason, the why, and the what that we're presenting this for. But this proclamation from the City of Durant, whereas People First Industries is a private, nonprofit, tax-exempt organization that secures state, federal, and local contracts to provide the aforementioned employment opportunities for those individuals with disabilities. And whereas People First Industries of Bryan County, formerly known as Sheltered Work Opportunities, began as a vision of several philanthropic Durant civic leaders. The purpose for which these individuals came together was to form a corporation to secure and furnish life incentives and gainful employment to employable citizens of Bryan County not presently in the workforce because of intellectual and/or physical disabilities. And whereas in 1978, the workshop opened. Originally located in downtown Durant, the workshop has been operating at the present location, 3324 Enterprise Drive, since January 1999. And whereas the workshop attempts to secure and furnish life incentives that includes every effort to aid and/or assist each individual to view himself or herself as a productive and valued member of society. And whereas each individual is informed of all rights and responsibilities of employment and citizenship and assisted in the pursuit of individual satisfaction through fulfillment of vocational training and gainful employment opportunities. And whereas the unemployment rate for people with disabilities is 2 times higher than that of people without disabilities. And whereas through our workforce development services, People First Industries empowers individuals by working toward eliminating barriers to opportunities and providing people with disabilities the opportunity to overcome their disabilities through employment services, community access, and advocacy. And whereas each attempt to deliver services is made with the absolute minimum of variation from the commonly accepted patterns of society and always individualized to preference and lifestyle for each participant based on their individual needs. Now therefore, I, Jerry L. Tomlinson, Mayor of the City of Durant, along with the Durant City Council, do hereby deem it an honor and a pleasure to extend this proclamation and hereby declare December the 12th, 2017 as People's First Industries Day in the City of Durant. Chip, thank you, and thank you for what you do out there, for what that's meant to our city, but particularly what it's meant to the folks that you employ out there all these years. And we'd like to present this proclamation and like for you, if you would, to please say a few words to our audience.
Well, this is indeed an honor, unexpected. I'm going to ask some people to stand on that back row, those employees of some People First Industries. Chuck, you can stand up too. And Mr. Morris. Mr. Morris is a board member without whose input is very valuable. You know, thank you. You know, for all that, you know, for recognizing us. You know, we have been out there since 1978, providing those opportunities and, you know, working hard. I was kind of honored when I received the request, or, you know, that this would happen today. So I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank the city council members. Tim, thank you for honoring us today. We are located out there on Enterprise Drive, if you all are invited to come out sometime, if you want to see what we do, please just come out. It's, I think you'll be impressed.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks. Congratulations.
Retirement.
Chip, I think Dan wants to get a photo.
Same pose. Same pose. You just want me to.
Can you get us? Get friendly.
We gotta act like we like each other again.
Chip, thanks again. Congratulations, bud. Thank you for what you do. It's a little warm in here. City manager, council members are always honored when we have the opportunity to honor and recognize our fellow citizens, if you will, and again, congratulations to those that we recognize this evening, and thank you for what you do and what you mean to our community. Okay, if you're following along on the agenda, and if you'll notice, we have some new monitors up. Can you guys in the audience see yours okay? Because we've got one we can see now.
We can see ours pretty good.
Yeah,
I don't even have to look.
yeah, it's pretty good. But thank you, Mr. City Manager, and staff for doing that. Okay, that actually takes us to item number 2 on our agenda under consent items. Consent items are a portion of the agenda that groups the routine, procedural, and self-explanatory items together. These items are voted on in a single motion, one vote. However, any council member requesting further information on a specific item may remove it from the consent items to be considered under agenda item number 3. Do council members have any consent items? We have A through I believe, to remove for consideration.
I do. Items E, 1 and 2.
Councilman Groby has requested item E, 1 and 2. Any others? Hearing none, what's council's pleasure on the consent items?
Move to approve the remaining items.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the consent items. Any further discussion, questions? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Ruby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dill,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson,
Aye. Motion carries, which will take us to item number 3, to consider items removed from the consent docket. And it would become items 3E, 1 and 2. And E is to consideration to enter into a lease purchase C-2017-80 with Motorola Solution Inc. for CallWorks 911 software, hardware, equipment. And then items 1E1, consider approval of a lease purchase contract C-2017-80 with Motorola Solutions Inc. for CallWorks 911 solution. And item number 2, to consider approval of request for authorization to purchase RFAP number 2018-096 in the amount of $318,157 from Motorola Solutions Inc. for CallWorks 911 solution. I know Council Member Groby has. Do you have some questions on that to address?
I think I sent an email to Tim regarding this. I found a link where these 911 systems, the government is offering grants, and I asked Tim to check into this, so.
Yes, we did, Councilmember Groby. As a matter of fact, we had Becca Collins, our grants coordinator, look into it, and we went back and forth. What was the gentleman's name?
Daryl Maggard.
Daryl, yeah, in regards to the funding, and I'll let the chief and Becca, if they want to talk about it as far as the subsequent conversations from that. So,
Absolutely. Daryl Maggard, just to preface who he is, he's the chairman of the Oklahoma State 911 Management Authority. He chairs that board, and last November, so November of 16, the new law went into effect where the 911 monies from cell phones goes to the state and then is reallocated back to the counties. So kind of to bring you up to speed in that aspect. So what's taking place on that grant announcement, in my understanding and confirmed by Becca and Daryl as well, is that the federal government has not made the decision yet to allocate funds to the states for this 911 grant money. Once the federal government allocates funds for grants to the states, then the state has to make a decision whether they want to take their 5% cut of the monies that they're gathering and have been for the past year to reallocate that as a match to the federal grants back to the local entities such as us. So in short, although that is in the works, I think it's in the public comment section now, or stage now, it's not available, nor are the applications available at this time. Daryl has indicated that his best guess, and again, he chairs that Oklahoma Authority Board, his best guess is that monies may be, not guaranteed, available the very end of 2018 or the beginning of 2019. And even then, their primary focus are going to be on about 5 counties that are currently phase 0 or at least less than phase 2. And when I'm talking about phases of 911, phase 0 is, hello, how are you doing? What can I help you with? Phase 1 might be a caller ID. Phase 2 is caller ID and a location, and then next generation. And now we're moving into something they call I3, which even I am not very familiar with at this point. Durant is currently a next generation county for 911. Having said that, their focus, according to Daryl, is going to be on those 5 counties that have no or little 911 capabilities at this point. They're going to take care of them to bring them up to phase 2, because I believe they were supposed to, all counties were supposed to, all PSAPs, public safety answering points, were supposed to be at least phase 2 compliant, and I'm going to throw a year out there. I think it was 2015. That could be the wrong year, and simply some of them aren't in compliance at this point. I want to read something to you, what Daryl actually wrote in an email, and it kind of explains what's going on. It says, along the same line as what he explained and I just passed along to me, he said, there are about 8 cities, counties, or COGs in the state, including Durant, that have advanced to leading other areas in Oklahoma. I thought that was pretty significant. I didn't know we were one of 8 cities or 8 PSAPs leading in the state of Oklahoma for our 911 answering point. I found that pretty significant. So what he says after that is, when it comes to Oklahoma, and to ensure those of us who are in that group don't get left out and that our needs are met in service planning and funding on the state level, he, Daryl Maggard, will be getting representatives from those 8 Oklahoma 911 early adopters together in a meeting not associated with the 911 authority to discuss our needs and set priorities and goals and present that to the state 911 authority. And he closes with this statement: this way we're pushing the cart, not getting told what we need. So maybe that answers the question as far as the funding that may be available out there, and that's coming from the state director.
The next question I'd like to ask is, how critical is it? How quickly do we need this equipment? Is it something that we don't have it tomorrow, we're going to be in trouble? Or
well, that's an excellent question. And I have IT staff here to answer maybe some of those issues as well. I don't deal with the problem. I don't deal directly with the problems that they face as far as the service tickets and the maintenance issues on those. But let me read something else to you. And this is from our current 911 vendor, Solacom. It says, this email in regard to the Solacom Guardian system and the age of some of the hardware, as well as the hardware and software support. And this is from our current vendor. It says, there are components of the system that are over 5 years old and out of hardware and software support, meaning that the system is not in a recommended state due to the age and the support agreement should a failure occur. That's from our current vendor. He's saying the software support in the Guardian system has also expired. That's from our current vendor. So they're saying we are susceptible to failure right now. The hardware's outdated, and since it's a computer server, basically, if it does fail, then we simply have no 911 for the county. So it is critical. If you'd like to hear some of the problems, I can't speak to that, but the IT staff is very well versed in it.
One thing you just said is it's 5 years old. This lease purchase we're talking about is on a 5-year, if I remember correctly. So that means about time we get that paid off, we'll need another one.
You're exactly right. It's not 5 years. Our current Solacom system was purchased somewhere around the 2007, 2009 era. So the life of these products, although we have updated some hardwares in that interim, is 5 to 10 years. And I think 10 years is going to be pushing it. The proposal that we have for CallWorks is a 10-year system payable over 7 annual payments. What's unique about the payment plan and the lease purchase system here, as far as I understand it, is when we can start it, and even though it's a 10-year program, it's payable in 7 annual payments, which leaves us the ability to save for 3 years for when it's due for another upgrade. And coincidentally, in this 10-year cycle, the payments in this lease program includes a 6-year, on the 6th year, a hardware refresh.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Oh, no problem.
And I'm going to turn to Tim now. Tim and I went and met several months ago with the 911, I guess, group or what board, and it seems like the city's already supplementing the 911 to the tune of $300,000 to $400,000 a year. So if we purchase this and we have to pay $314,000 with interest, it means that we're carrying, somebody's not paying their fair share. Am I not correct in this?
I believe the number that we're really down to is around to 200 when all the.
Last year was $375,000 that the city supplemented the 911 budget. The year before that was about 300 in the teens, 317, 318,000. But please, when you think of 911 in the budget, and it's a hard concept to grasp, because you have within the 911 Communications Center, which is a county-wide operation, you have 2 aspects. You have a 911 call-taking center, and then you have a dispatching center to get those calls out. So you got 2 aspects into one county, and we're talking about the one aspect. So money's getting from the landlines and cell phones, go to the state and back to us to maintain that 911 infrastructure. We estimate on a year-to-year basis, and hopefully that's going to go up in the future based upon the increase in the cell phone fees. We've estimated in the past few years about $240,000 that we get in as revenue from landlines and cell phone fees. And some years it's a pretty accurate. Some years you fall a little bit short, some years a little bit over, but it's around that $240,000 mark. But as you can see, $240,000 it doesn't just pay for that equipment. Now you pay for the people who answer the equipment, which, you know, the budget for 911, about $600,000 of a $900,000 budget comes from personnel. So two aspects, two different job duties in there, and very, very difficult for even the public to understand, because to them it's just one communication center, but there's 2 aspects in there.
And I understand by law the dispatch we have to do, or the 911, but the dispatch we don't, if I understand
that is done
right.
through an MOU, correct?
Also, I guess what I'm saying, is there ever a chance that we will break even on this? Would that be a possibility?
You know, at our last 911 meeting that I attended, I'm excited about the fees that I see coming in. I will not know the answer to your question for about another 12 months. Just to see how much of an increase that the state's getting and then they're distributing back. Because what's happening is when they're distributing this money back from their cell phone fees, where it used to be per zip code. So if you have a cell phone and it's 74701 zip code, well, we got those fees for the city of Durant, our PSAP. We're the answering point for that zip code. But now it's based on county population. So what's happening is you have, without naming names, you have a very large entity in the city of Durant that has hundreds upon hundreds of cell phones that they purchase with a 74701 zip code, but that those cell phones may be distributed over 10.5 counties. Now we're getting not based on zip code for billing purposes. Now we're getting monies based upon population. So we're losing some, but we're gaining some. And it could be a break-even point, but what we are seeing is a trend that we are getting a little bit more. I just don't know how much yet. About 12 months, it'll tell.
I'm sorry I took everybody's time up, but I suppose the bottom line of what you're saying is that we can't get the grant right now and we need the equipment. Is that what you're saying, and we basically need to pass this?
Absolutely. I recommend that we do pass it. Our Guardian solution says it is at the point of failure, and we can't afford a failure in 911 equipment. What is unique about this is CallWorks through Motorola, and those reps are here if you want to hear from them. They have agreed to push out, the contract says our first payment to July of 2019. So not this budget year, not next budget year, but the following budget year. So that gives us a budget and a half. And I heard from Brian Pike, and Brian, if you'll wave to him, let him know who you are. I think since this is a promotional opportunity, there's two aspects going on. I think I'm going to steal his thunder here. But there's two aspects going on. This is a promotional lease purchase product. So we're getting 4 stations, but we're only paying for 3 because they want to do business with us this calendar year. In addition, he's negotiated to where December of 2020? That our first payment, he's going to change that lease program to where it's pushed out to December of 2020 for our first payment. Now, uniquely, we're paying $30,000 approximately to our current vendor just for software and hardware maintenance. So that's $30,000 we're going to be saving, not paying them, and then adding a $15,000 for seven years to pay for the totally upgraded system. So the answer to your question is yes, I recommend the passing of this for 2 different reasons. The promotional value, we're getting 4 for the price of 3, and the lease purchase program, it's pushed out far enough that since the monies aren't allocated, it's not budgeted in this fiscal year. It won't be budgeted in the next fiscal year, which will put us into that 2019. And if what Daryl Maggard says is true, that those monies will be available in the first part of 2019, then we can apply for those and still not be supplanting for federal funds if we're not going to budget until 2020. So yeah, that's my recommendation.
Thank you.
I just wondered if the Motorola guy was considered 2 for 4 instead of 3 for 4.
You know, I'm a pretty shrewd negotiator, I think, as Brian will attest, and you know, he's probably pushing it. Yeah. So, did that answer you guys' questions?
It did, thank you.
Would you like to hear from IT or Motorola at all?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, I would like to thank them for making themselves available. So, and thank you guys.
I have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
And I know this is part of a bigger contract for purchasing. How is the interest rate determined?
It's on a HGAC contract. It's Houston Galveston area contract, and I do not know the answer to your question about how the interest rate. It's at a 0% for the first year and 4%, but stand by. That might be a question for one of these guys, either Chris Howard or Brian Pike with Motorola. Good question. I'm sorry I don't know the answer.
I see 4.07, I think.
For years 2 through 6, yes.
So I'm Chris Howard with Motorola. Thank y'all for allowing us to be here tonight. First 2 years of this program is, as the chief mentioned, is there's no payments due, and on top of that, there's no interest that accrues. So you go 2 years, no payments, no interest. As far as how the rates are set, it's they use a formula based on market rates, and so the four, I don't have right here in front of me, but the 4.07 is what the rate actually is when you make your first payment, but then it's locked in for the life of the lease. So but there's a formula they use based on the market rate.
And there is no prepayment penalty, so if you got monies allotted to you, you could actually pay that off.
Yeah, and one thing that the chiefs talked to us about too that didn't come up, there's the non-appropriations, which I think ties in with what you just said. There's a non-appropriations get out of jail free card on this thing. It's probably a poor way to put that, but it's there is non-appropriation language in the lease purchase contract to where if you know, if you got the grant within the first 2 years before you actually expended any payments, or as the funding starts coming in 2 or 3 years, all of a sudden you had the money to pay for the whole thing, you just pay it off, and there's no penalty. So, or if the appropriation wasn't there for the city of Durant for whatever reason, then you can cancel the lease. We don't see that happening, but you do have that ability to do that.
Actually, it's in the CSA contract. It's a convenience clause. It's 13, and it leaves you 30 days to cancel at any time at your request.
Any other questions from council members?
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you. We actually have items E1 and E2. E1 is to consider approval of the lease purchase contract C-2017-80 with Motorola Solutions, Inc. for CallWorks 911 solution. You've heard the recommendation from Chief. What's council's pleasure?
Nope.
We can have further questions after.
Mr. Mayor, I think I've got maybe a question regarding the non-appropriation of funds language. And I wouldn't expect that to come up in this instance, since it's a relatively small amount and it's for 911 operations, but there is a non-appropriation clause in there on paragraph 5 that specifically says non-appropriation of funds shall not constitute a default. And so that's very specific as to non-appropriation of funds, which would tend to trump a general clause in typical contract interpretation. So if that's the case, that non-appropriation of funds wouldn't constitute a default, then that probably needs to be addressed. But
Mr. City Attorney, upon your review, a motion could be upon the City Attorney's review, contingent upon the change in language regarding that particular reference. I mean, so far, council members, should we consider this? Excuse me.
I think it's okay. I just want to make sure that those two paragraphs agree with each other. But I generally think it's okay, and it doesn't give me pause. I've read through it. I reviewed it before it was placed on the agenda, and I think it's just fine. But I'm not sure that those two completely agree with each other.
But a motion could be contingent upon them agreeing with one another, right? Any other questions for the City Attorney or for Chief or for the Motorola folks?
Do we need to do these separately?
Yes, I think so, E1 and E2. The contract and then the RFAP.
Mayor, while they're discussing, I would like to add one thing in regard, and it won't change any decision, but while I was talking to Daryl, I was excited, one, that he said that we're one of the 8 cities or 8 PSAPs in the state of Oklahoma that's leading this effort. And 2, he said this CallWorks situation, the product, since there are multiple PSAPs across the state of Oklahoma going to that same system, that Durant would possibly be considered as a regional 911 host for the state of Oklahoma. That way, if a PSAP went out in Ada or Cole County, that they could shut theirs off and we could accept their calls as well. So it's a multi-county system. I thought that was pretty exciting as well. So I'll leave it to you.
Speaks well of our. It's council's pleasure.
Make a motion to approve the lease purchase contract C-2017-80 with Motorola Solutions contingent upon review and approval by the city attorney.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Questions? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Ruby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Item E2, 3E2, consider approval of request for authorization to purchase RFAP 2018-096 in the amount of $318,157 for Motorola Solutions, Inc. for CallWorks 911 solution.
Move to approve.
Motion
Second.
and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne.
Aye.
Councilmember Ruby.
Aye.
Councilmember Dills.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Motorola. Takes us to item number 4 under administration, 4A. Let me get back to my agenda here. Uh, 4A, consider approval of the employee holiday checks for 2017. Going to ask the city manager if he's going to do that, or maybe Carrie Dosh.
I can go ahead, unless Carrie, you're dying to come up here. Mr. Mayor, before you tonight is a consideration to approve the holiday checks. These were already in the budget when we did the budget back in May and June of this last year. Currently, we would have 199 full-time employees and 5 part-time employees that would qualify for the checks, which we've done traditionally here, and it's $350 per employee, and this is for your approval.
Heard the city manager's recommendation. What's council's pleasure?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
The only thing, don't we normally do this in November?
I've only got one November under me before this one. I think we did last year, but typically I don't think we hand the checks out until December. We may do it typically on November on the agenda, but they're not handed out until December. So we could look at changing that. There was some discussion, Councilmember Gruby, about changing that to where they can get the checks prior to Thanksgiving to go.
Black Friday.
Yeah, to go shopping on Black Friday and get a little bit of a jump start on the holiday.
I think that would be a really good idea. A lot of the citizens need that extra money, and they need it during the Black Friday, I guess. Is that the big mob that's out shopping?
It's
the one
Shop
I
Small
avoid.
Saturday, right? That's the day they're supposed to be out there.
Actually, I think our city manager and maybe our benefits department, Ms. Dosh, and that staff could probably review that and bring back either a recommendation or just.
Sure, I think we
bring
can.
that back next
I think we can do that when we go through the budget process next year, making sure that we earmark it for November.
I think it would be a good will gesture. Then they could go fight the mob on Friday.
Did we vote yet? Did we vote on this yet? Okay. We had a motion and a second, right? Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne.
Aye.
Councilmember Ruby.
Aye.
Councilmember Dills.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Merry Christmas. Item 4B, consider award of bids for parks and ground maintenance services for the 2018-2020 growing seasons, and I think Marty Pope is up on that one.
Mayor,
Mr.
Council,
Marty.
I think I'll be up here for a little while. The city went out for bids this year, a little earlier than we usually do, for the maintenance, grounds maintenance, and to try to get a few more contractors to come in and give us some bids. We usually go out in February, March is when we go out, trying to allow them a little more time to get their new year, their schedule set. On the mowing, we had more vendors this year come in, more contractors come in to give us some bids. Of course, you can see my packet here. You guys got the same thing that I have. We come back this year with some bids that were about $20,000 less than the previous year on the same properties that we had went out for last year for bid, which was awesome. The bypass and the 6975 of the brush cutting on it is $16,000 less than we paid last year. So a total savings of about $20,000. The Parks Department, we've taken over some of the parks that we had in the previous bid out. We have taken them back to take care of some of that stuff ourselves. So I can, if you want me to, I can read my recommendations for each company for the properties on the bids.
Okay. And Marty, excuse me, I might ask for some clarification here. We're going to be considering like B, C, D, and D has 3, and then E, and then F, and G. And G has a 1 and a 2. That's Lawrence Welk, isn't it? 1 and a 2, okay. But
hey,
we've got to take those one at a time.
Right, but can I clarify one thing real quick?
Sure.
We did have, we've got a young man here in town. He's a local contractor. Really nice guy. He mows for the city of Sherman. He had bid, put a bid on everything that we had. We talked about it. He had received another contract from the city of Sherman. So we had to go back and take our backup bid on a few of these properties just because he did not want to overstep what he could do for the city to do a good job. He said, I live here, I want to do a good job, but what I'm mowing, he said, I don't want to take over too many properties that I can't maintain. So we talked about it for a little bit. Really nice young man. This gives him some properties to mow and give him a chance to show what kind of work he can do for the city. So we did take on 2 of them, I believe, or 3 of them, we took the backup bid on, which was still less than what it was last year on our prices. So I was pretty happy about that. And like I said, his name is Glenn Kaufman with Elite 6, and he wants to see what he can do for the city. So just want to clarify that on the bids.
Sure. Okay, so are we ready to consider the bid for the parks and grounds maintenance services? Okay. For the 2018-2020 growing season. Is that?
You may read it?
Yeah.
Okay, my recommendation.
And make your recommendation.
My recommendation for the 6975 and the bypass is True Grit. That's a company who's brush hog for us for the last couple of years. The bid come back $16,000 less than what it was last year. On the brush cutting, recommendation for Lynch Lawn and Landscape on the median group. This is all under one bid packet. Elite 6 for Dixon Durant Park, Billy Miller Park, and Cloverleaf Group number 2. And then True Grit Works, like I said, they've worked for us for the last 5 or 6 years on Carl Albert, Slayton Park, Cloverleaf Group number 1, the library, is my recommendation on this one.
Okay, help me out. I need clarification here. B is really not a bid, is it? I mean, you're asking us to consider the award of bids.
Right.
So we're going to do that. So we move to C, consider approval of request for authorization to purchase for parks and grounds maintenance services for 2018 mowing season, RFAP number 2018-81. Okay, so help me out. Do we take action on C, or do we begin?
B is where you'd begin.
D? Okay, that's what I needed to know, guys.
Yeah, you're gonna start.
There's a lot on this, sorry.
You start with this one, and then it's going to go.
But there's not a bid there, right?
No, that's just awarding.
Right. We're considering awarding with B. The C is a request. Okay, we need a motion on C.
You need a motion on B also, and
Okay,
that's
all right,
awarding the
thank you.
bids, and then you're doing the,
Okay.
then down this page, you're
Okay.
doing the
Okay.
RFAPs and the contracts.
Do we have a motion on B?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Ruby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye. And confusion, folks, for me, it was the process has to go in an order, and I wasn't sure of the order, so I'm trying to make sure we're accurate on that. Item C, consider a motion for the RFAP 2018-81.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Ruby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Item 4D, consider approval of contracts for Parks and Grounds maintenance services for 2018 mowing season. Item number 1, consider approval of contract between City of Durant and True Grit Works for Parks and Grounds maintenance services for 2018 growing season, C-2017-78.
Can I ask one question,
Yes,
Marty?
ma'am.
What about all the equipment we have? Don't we have quite a bit of mowing equipment? What are we gonna do with it?
We have, what we've done, we've taken some parks back, like Leonard Morgan, Plyler, City Hall, Schuler Park, Keithley Park, Pocket Park, Remington Park, the airport. We've taken some of these properties that we have bid in the last couple of years. We've taken those back. We're going to maintain them ourselves this year. On the brush hogging, we do have some tractors. We have some brush hogs. We still maintain the airport, brush hogging all of it. We still maintain South Ninth, University, all over the city of Durant. We still brush hog floodplain lots. We still take care of a lot of property.
Marty, is Remington Park, is that Jacob's Playground?
Yes, ma'am.
It's about big as this.
It's small. Yes, ma'am.
When you said Remington Park, I want to make sure.
Yes.
Marty's recommendation on 4D1 is True Grit Works, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Markham, all the contracts look good to you? Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Questions? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Ruby.
Aye.
Councilmember Dills.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Item 4D2, consider approval of contract between the City of Durant and Elite 6 LLC for Parks and Grounds maintenance services for 2018 growing season C-2017-76.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Ruby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Item 4D3, consider approval of contract between City of Durant and Lynch Lawn and Landscape LLC for Parks and Grounds maintenance services for 2018 growing season C-2017-77.
Move to approve.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Ruby.
Aye.
Councilmember Dills.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries.
Sorry, I wasn't moving fast enough, apparently.
Item
You
4E.
have to get faster tonight.
Consider award of bids for the cemetery lawn maintenance services for 2018-2020 mowing season. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion.
Motion?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson,
Aye, motion carries. 4F, consider approval of request for authorization to purchase for cemetery lawn maintenance services for 2018 mowing season, RFAP 2018-74. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson,
Aye, motion carries. Item 4G, consider approval of contracts for cemetery lawn maintenance services for the 2018-2020 growing seasons. Do we have a motion?
There's, which one?
Do we need a motion on G?
G1.
G1?
I'll move to approve G1 C-2017-74.
Second.
Motion and a second on G1. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson,
Aye, motion carries. 4G2.
Move to approve G2 C-2017-75.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson,
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Thank you. A lot of work went into that. Takes us to item 4H, 2015 Community Development Block Grants, 16436, Water System Improvements, C-2015-56. H1 is to consider approve the request for authorization to purchase, RFAP 2018-091, in the amount of $87,052 for altitude valves and installation relating to the 2015 Community Development Block Grant 16436, CDBG 15 C-2015-56. Ms. Becca.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and council members. The awarded 2015 CDBG included a SCADA system and altitude valves to improve our water system. The SCADA system was complete, and so the altitude valves is the remaining part of this project. And the staff conducted bids, and this final amount for the request for authorization to purchase is will complete the project for the new valves.
So we need a motion for the RFAP 2018-091.
Do we need to approve the bids first? Approve 2 before 1.
Well, sometimes we do the request for authorization, but that way the money's in place before you award bids, but that's been done both ways.
Move to approve H1.
Second.
Motion and a second for H1. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson,
Aye, motion carries. Item H2, it's 4H2. Consider to approve staff and engineer recommendation for bid number 2018-091 award for altitude valves and installation relating to the 2015 Community Development Block Grant 16436, CDBG 15, C-2015-56.
Move to approve.
At the time that we opened bids on Friday, the 8th, we only received one bid packet. And so I had to contact Commerce to get approval to award to a single bidder. That has been approved, and you'll notice in your bid packet that I had mentioned that it may be contingent upon their approval. That is complete, and the award, or the bidder, the low bidder, the best bid is Worth Hydrochem of Oklahoma and Norman.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne.
Aye.
Councilmember Ruby.
Aye.
Councilmember Gills.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you.
Becca. Takes us to 4I. Consider approval of resolution 2017-30 in support of the Durant Industrial Authority. Tim, did you want to address that, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Council, before you tonight is a resolution of support for the Durant Industrial Authority and the Durant Economic Development Council. The last couple of meetings with the departure of Mr. Kramer, we've been very fortunate to have Paul Bunce, former city manager, come in and take over as the interim as the Industrial Authority prepares to its future of hiring a new director for the Industrial Authority. As such, they had requested that the mayor and the council draft some sort of letter of resolution of support in regards to the DIA itself. And within the DIA, it lists out the accomplishments of the DIA since its inception in 1998, that the population of Durant's risen over 33%. Sales tax average has increased by 120%. We currently have the third lowest unemployment in southern Oklahoma. And the capita personal income has increased by over 46% in the past 13 years. In effect, Mr. Mayor and the council tonight before you is simply a resolution for the DIA requesting that the council still support their efforts in going out and recruiting new business, new industry. I know just over the past 2 weeks, we've had a couple companies come in and look at the Industrial Authority. We're down to the last two on a couple of these companies, which would be major boost to the economy here if we had these companies come in and with the number of employees and the number of dollars that are going to be generated as a result would be another big shot in the arm.
I believe just to add to what the city managers advised us of regarding the DIA. In 2000, I believe in 2002, the citizens voted to support the DIA with a 1/4 cent economic development tax. And having sat on that board and witnessed over the years, or having been a part of that since really 1998, as city manager mentioned again, the per capita income, the number of jobs that have been created, and as we speak, the potential new jobs still to be possible, and even years down the road for organized growth and quality job creation. I think it's wise that we consider, or that we continue to show support to the DIA, and also you may want to elaborate a little more, Tim, the organizational flow of how the DIA staff, et cetera, is going to look.
Yes, pretty shortly we're going to be bringing together a new agreement between the city and the DIA in which after discussing with the DIA, the authority, and they have come to an agreement that whomever the new executive director is would be under the purview of the city manager, and working with the DIA board and these things. There's also some discussion about, in order to, as a cost-saving measure, perhaps move the executive director and the assistant over to City Hall. That currently, I think we're spending about $1,250 a month in rent there with the chamber, and some cost-saving measures with that, and looking at other funding sources to help offset the operation that would not come out of the utility authority.
Right. Thank you. And again, this resolution of support is to continue, in my opinion, to show support again for the Durant Industrial Authority and what they do. Any questions from council members? Do we have a motion?
Move to approve resolution 2017-30.
Second.
Have a motion, have a second. Any further discussion, questions?
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to say, and you did make the statement, that the citizens of Durant voted the 1/4 cent sales tax to fund the DIA. And I feel like, my personal feeling, as long as the citizens want the DIA here, then I think it's a wonderful idea.
I agree. Any other comments, questions? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Rubin,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson,
You want me to read it? Aye, sorry. Motion carries. Okay, 4J. To consider approval of ordinance 1840. Actually, it's an amendment. Am I reading that correctly? It's an amendment. And an ordinance amending the Durant Code of Ordinances, adding section 110.035 and 110.036, mobile boutique. Boutique or boutique?
Boutique would be proper.
Providing for emergency. Mr. Marty and Mr. Matt.
Good evening. So this is Matt's first chance to address the council as a full-fledged planner. We've been working on this with Stephanie Gardner, actually, from Durant Main Street program for a couple months. It's been something that me and her have been going over and trying to compare notes on. This is a, you've heard of pop-up shops in other cities, very much based on the same premise as the food truck ordinance that we put through a few months ago. Really the difference is that they won't have food. They will have merchandise. And so the thought is that in special events like they have down at Market Square, and the situation would be very similar to a food truck in the fact that they couldn't set up on public right-of-way, they can't block streets. It would be part of a special event, or it would be on private property, like a parking lot at Green Spray or something like that. We'd be happy to entertain questions. To be honest, we expect a few. Kind of a incubator program for new business to get started sometimes. But this is your first look at this, and we'd like to answer any questions you might have.
Well, one, I appreciate your efforts in this regard. And Stephanie, where's Stephanie? Is she still here? She had to leave? Okay. And her efforts. But for me, I think I discussed even, Tim, with you. I looked over the amendment, but I just would want to make sure that in our ordinance, as the food trucks ordinance, et cetera, that we have the things in place for providing the insurance, the
Yes.
liability insurance, the sales tax
And the sales and use
permits,
tax.
et cetera.
Yes.
So
To be honest, I used all the same words because I knew how important that was to you in the food truck ordinance. So their paragraph, and I could actually just read it again a minute ago. but it specifically talks about the insurance requirements for operating on city property during a special event where we have to be named commonly assured.
So you have,
I don't remember the
you
word,
have all
but-
that in order.
Oh,
That's good.
additionally insured, yeah, so that's item 4 under, A4 under 110.36. And so, yeah, it's exactly like the food truck in the fact that we kept that language on purpose. Really, the things that I changed in this ordinance were things that referenced food and inserted things that referenced merchandise. So it was a very similar ordinance. And I will point out as well that this is the actual ordinance. The next item for consideration is an amendment where they are referenced in another section of ordinance to make sure that that agrees with terminology. And the third one would be an actual resolution to set a fee for this particular product.
Okay.
So these all three have to do, if you go with the first one, you need to go with the other two. I'm just kind of putting it.
Marty, can you give me an example of a mobile boutique or boutique that's
For
not
instance, and I have seen, you know, when you go to Magnolia Fest, you'll see booths set up with different, and those are people that don't do that full time. They don't have a brick and mortar store, so they might want to come in on a farmer's market type weekend or on a special food truck Friday. I've seen a couple of them that actually pull like an Airstream, and they actually have jewelry or something for sale inside of that. And so they're trying to get that vintage look. You can use a booth or a tent of sorts like the canopy tents. Again, and I'm not, don't ever think I'm selling this to you, okay? This is for you guys to decide.
But these businesses would be required to work with the festivals and the event holders. They can't just show up and
Yeah, no, absolutely.
and set up. Yeah, I just want to preface that by letting you know that.
And part of the whole process here is that we actually get a chance to give some guidelines to them. And if they show up, then they have to go through a process. There's an application to fill out. We get good contact information. We know their insurance. We get to approve or deny based on whether they qualify. So it's kind of a way to regulate it and still allow it to happen to some extent, if that makes sense.
Just to be clear on this,
I didn't want
if they're on private property, they would still have to do an application?
Absolutely, yeah.
Not, and if I may, it's a pleasure to be in front of y'all for my first time in my new position. But it's non-residential private property, if it is private property.
So I asked him this, but I thought I better ask it on here. If they don't get a permit, I mean, we have a way to police this, right? We have a way to make sure they're doing the right thing, make sure we can check them randomly, whatever, if we see one set up.
We can shut them down. We have the right to check them randomly already as far as inspection. Fire safety, fire marshal also has the right to check them when he sees fit. We can check for fire extinguishers if they would be something that would require that. We also can ticket them as we need to, like we would an itinerant sales vendor or something like that, so.
Does this only apply to anything other than any kind of food truck or?
No, this is very specific. So if you look at the definition of what they're selling, so they don't have, our itinerant merchant license code reads to talk about solicitors and peddlers, and there's a very long list of items in there. This is one more thing we're breaking out of that code, trying to set a specific guideline for this specific type of function.
I just don't see that many of them around.
And maybe because it's $1,000 to get an itinerant merchant license and we can't police it very well, maybe if we do this, we'll see some more. And to be honest, maybe we don't like that. I'm not saying you will, but that's something we'll face.
Marty, I have a question, and I try not to get comment on the policy side, but from an enforcement standpoint, I'm curious as to what defines a pop-up shop or a mobile boutique. I know it references vehicle, trailer, and/or booth. If somebody puts up a folding table, where does it cross over? What is the sort of the bottom end of a mobile boutique?
So what we look at is, do you have a brick and mortar business right behind that? Because if you're out in front of your storefront, then that's you paying taxes already. You're going to have the proper bathroom safety equipment, blah, blah, blah. If you're not, if you're anybody else just popped up, even with just a table, that should be regulated in a way that we can make sure the taxes are being addressed and the safety is being addressed. And that's what we're trying to discourage, is actually popping up random tables in the middle of a sidewalk of an accessible area without some enforcement power. Now, we have the enforcement power now as well, but we're trying to give them a guideline big enough that they know where they can go, and then hopefully they won't go where they can't very often. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So a table could qualify as a mobile boutique.
Okay. The second issue is you mentioned that it sort of envisioned to be for special occasions or events. What's to keep someone from applying for a permit on the third Thursday of the month to set up in a parking lot somewhere?
Nothing. We would expect we would see more of them at events. Like food trucks, I don't think you're going to get the kind of business where you're going to make a lot of money on a parking lot every Thursday, right? So you're more apt to come in when the traffic is high enough. You're going to get a good walk count. And it's the same question. It's a fair question. Same question we face with food trucks.
But you guys can't deny that, right? If it's every single Tuesday, you can say, okay, no, you can't set up every single Tuesday or whatever. You have that authority. Is that correct?
We always have the authority to deny. We would probably try to find a reason why based on safety, security,
Gotcha.
something like that, obviously. If they are following every law to the letter and want to set up every Tuesday and they pay us whatever the fee is, $30 every Tuesday to set up, then I guess we would let them set up every Tuesday.
What would this look like for the May to October when we have the farmers market folks?
The farmers market is a city, how do you say that? The city participates in that event in a way that they have had in the past, special permission at a different kind of license. Because it's farmers market, because it's on city property, and we are a participant in that function, they in the past haven't had to receive itinerant merchant license or food truck license for that function. Now, the food trucks, when they came in, they started doing that because they were coming in beside the farmers market. I would expect a mobile vendor that was not selling produce to also have to come in and get the permit then to sell jewelry or whatever else they were going to sell.
Marty, would this turn into like a flea market type atmosphere?
Well, we hope not, to be honest.
You see what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah. We asked the same thing when food trucks came in. I said, well, what if they park everywhere? What if they're up and down the street? What if they, what we found out was they kind of self-police because, again, you can't really make enough money to do it every day and make it worth your while. And that's not to say they won't. I can't promise they won't. But the traffic that we generate just may not be to that point yet.
Marty, I haven't seen any of them. I mean, you're not talking about garage, I mean, yard sales.
No, no. The thought behind this would be new merchandise. Again, we haven't seen them because they're not really available right now. We don't have an ordinance that would allow something like this to operate without jumping through a hoop that is far more expensive, which is becoming an itinerant sales permit.
So you're saying they haven't come here because
We've discouraged them.
we've discouraged them?
Yeah.
But once you have this is going to encourage them.
Oh, I mean, we're still making a fee off of it. It's not free, so it will encourage them more, yeah.
And they'll be required to pay their sales tax as well.
Which we aren't even we don't know about unless we actually have some kind of identifier on it.
Marty, would this apply to the vendors coming in and set up selling cell phones, those kinds of things?
I think they still would be right under the itinerant merchant license as more the definition, and this might be for Mr. Markham as a peddler or vendor or solicitor.
They got tents
They-
set up in town.
They're not selling merchandise, they're selling service, which is a little different.
Right, right.
So I don't pretend to be able to answer every question with an absolute at this moment. It's fluid, and if you guys would be happier thinking about this a little bit, I would be just as happy to let you do that. We're just trying to represent a crowd that has an interest. So.
Marty, if we see that this gets out of hand, it gets crazy, kind of like what I think we're all talking about up here, we have the ability to come back and revoke this, right?
Or amend it.
Or amend or whatever to police it.
To fix an ordinance, yeah.
We can always say, okay, this isn't turning out how we think it should.
Well, I think this puts us in a better position than where we are right now because it wouldn't have a whole lot of teeth. I think maybe looking at that specific issue with vendors, that way everybody's on the same
We
playing
looked at
field.
this in a way to positively identify the benefits and hope that people travel that direction. Some people just won't, and that may, hopefully that won't be the number that would cause a problem. So it's real hard to write a fast rule that applies across the board until you see what they bring in. You don't know sometimes.
Well,
It may surprise me too.
And to Marty's point earlier about kind of the self-policing, if these folks are going to be coming in and spending the money, up to $250 to get a permit, and plus we have to collect sales tax and be insured. If somebody else comes in and starts setting up, and they're going to police
They're
each
gonna
other.
come let us
They're
know
going to
about
come
that.
let us know that this is not a fair practice, that they went through all the regulatory process and this other person is not. So I think they'll police themselves on that as well. So.
Well, Marty, I know everybody's been busy and shorthanded, but it's been my experience, we have a lot of ordinances that are not, what's the proper word to say that we don't do anything about?
Sure. I mean, we find some, actually, every once in a while, we'll bring them to you for housekeeping, and we'll bring them to you to clean up that ordinance if we find a mistake. I'm not gonna even act like I've perfectly written every ordinance we have in our book. So
What I wanted to use was enforced.
Yeah. Some of them are almost impossible to enforce. I found some that have circular references, which make them impossible to enforce. So you're absolutely right. What we hope to do when we write a new ordinance is make it in a readable text that works well. And then as we move through our ordinances, we try to clean up other things that we recognize. Absolutely. We could put somebody in full-time cleaning up ordinance if you wanted to look for that.
Well, that's another topic, another discussion.
Sure.
Any other questions for Marty or Matt? If not, I think these guys have spent some time and working on this and have made a recommendation for the council to consider. What's council's pleasure?
Move to approve ordinance 1840, section 1.
Motion?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Ruby,
I think I'm going to say no, unless I can have time on the weekends to get out and ride around and run them down.
Fair enough.
So that's a no.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye. Motion carries. Item 4K, consider approval of ordinance 18.
Sir, let's go back and get
Oh,
to section
sorry.
2.
Motion for the emergency clause.
Motion to approve ordinance 1840, section 2.
Second.
Motion and a second for the emergency clause. The clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne.
Aye.
Councilmember Ruby.
No, isn't that what I just voted against? No.
Every time I call the roll, I have to close that again.
Thank you.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye. Motion carries. Takes us to item 4K, consider approval of ordinance 1841, an ordinance amending the Durant Code of Ordinances, section 110.023, exempting mobile boutiques from this section and providing for emergency. Council's pleasure, please.
Move to approve ordinance 1841, section 1.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Ruby,
No. Nay.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Motion for the emergency clause.
Move to approve ordinance 1841, section 2.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Ruby,
No.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Takes us to item 4L. Consider approval of resolution 2017-29, updating the City of Durant fee schedule. You guys are still up?
Yeah, this is your last item for this particular process. It's just setting the fees for it.
Oh, okay.
And again, we mirror image to the food truck fees to try to
Okay.
keep everything consistent.
So this is a resolution, we don't need an emergency clause.
No, it's just one piece.
Move to approve resolution 2017-29.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Nay.
Councilmember Hill,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Item 4M is to consider, thank you, Matt, thank you, Marty. Consider approval of agreements with Oklahoma Natural Gas Company to grant 3 right-of-way agreements across city properties and grant 1 temporary access and workspace agreement located between Mississippi Street and Georgia Street and between Southeast 1st and Southeast 3rd. Parcel 1, let's see, we need to consider M1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yes, sir. These are 3 separate going to be gas easements
Okay.
that are crossing our property.
Consider M1, parcel 1. Do we, Marty, you need to?
Yeah, I'm going to be up for these. So Oklahoma Natural Gas, Division of One Gas, is requesting an easement across our property for a gas line. They're trying to get to the sand plant that's located on Cemetery Road with a large enough gas main to supply them enough gas to dry sand. So to improve our industrial neighbor, we've got a gas line located. If you guys are having trouble with this location, it's just south of Leonard Morgan Park. It's all floodplain. It's actually through the bottom. A lot of this land was purchased many years ago with FEMA buyout money from floodplains. And so this land is unusable. It's wooded. We mow it sometimes we don't. And it's going to go from there all the way back out to Highway 78 almost. There's a pump station back in the woods there.
This map that I'm looking at almost looks like a neighborhood.
Well, it's because it is platted.
Okay.
There are no houses there. We bought
There's
them out.
nothing there?
Yeah, no, we tore them all down because it's a floodplain area.
Okay.
It will never be developed on again because we can't use that property for anything again.
Okay.
So it will have a gas line under it permanently, just so we're clear on that. But I don't see any other way to develop that property either.
Can only be used, I think, as a park or a
Yeah,
park-
which is why
parks.
Leonard Morgan Park is located as on part of that. This is actually the section just south of Leonard Morgan Park, which is actually lower, if you can believe, than the park is. And so it floods first and then the park takes on water second.
Any other questions for Marty on parcel 1?
Do we need to consider these individually?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, they're signed individually, so I put them in for individual approvals. I'd like to speak about the 4th one before we vote on it, if you guys would.
Council's pleasure on parcel 1.
Move to approve parcel 1.
Second.
Motion and a second for M1. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Hill,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Parcel 2.
Move to approve parcel 2.
Motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby.
Aye.
Councilmember Hill,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Item 4M3, parcel 3.
Move to approve parcel 3.
Motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Item 4M4. and
If you
had
would, for just a minute. Yeah, this one is a temporary access and workspace agreement. So this is for a little bit larger piece of property, but it would only be temporary. On the very north end, as you can see on the map on the screen right now, where the white hatching goes out around the red hatching. And it's so that they can get their equipment in there and do what they have to do to catch the pipe on that end. They're going to rent this from us. And so a fair price that has been discussed is $200 a month for that piece of property. They would rent it for the first 6 months with a $1,200 payment. And then after that, if they had to stay on, it would give us $200 a month until they had to leave. So that's going to be a rental because it's a temporary agreement and not a permanent agreement. Can you scroll on to the left there a little more? Yeah, no, the other way, sorry. So at the end on the right side there, now Leonard Morgan Park, you can see is just across the gravel driveway there to the north. North is going to be that direction to the right. And so the white hatching around the red hatching is going to be where the temporary workspace agreement is. And that's where they're going to rent that spot of property until they get this procedure done. From there, they have a main line that already goes back towards the sand plant.
That's not a part of that. That's not a part.
It's
of
no. It's a wooded area
okay.
across the alley from the park.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the park right there, and you can see the two dugouts on the baseball field to the right there. Yep. And when we do soccer practice and t-ball practice, that park will be full. But that area where we're renting is not even an area where you can park generally, because there are trees and tall grass and water. So.
I guess the question of 6 months, you said, will they?
6 months is a guarantee. They're going to rent it for 6 months, no matter what they need, right off the bat. After that, they'll pay $200 a month. Now, the reason I bring that up is in the Access Workplace Agreement, they presented this to me as a PDF, and I wasn't able to get in and retype. So we need to write in the numbers, $1,200 for the first 6 months and $200 a month after that.
Will they fence that? Will it be fenced?
I'm sure they will while they're digging the hole anyway.
Because we'll have kids.
Yeah. They'll have safety protocol. We'll make them meet that from a community development standpoint anyway. So.
Will this, I have two questions. Will this interfere with anything going on at the park when all that starts up? And if they cause any damage or anything like that on the road going through there, will they be fixing
So the roadway itself that's Mississippi Street. It's actually a packed gravel road. It's not paved, so they won't cause any damage there. But what they do cause, obviously we can get them to fix before they leave there. They're also going to have to do some silt fencing and stuff around their property, and again, safety fencing as well. I think it's going to be a bore, so it won't have a lot of open ditch or open hole. But we will definitely keep that addressed as we move forward. ONG, like I said, One Gas is a partner with the community, and we can definitely work together on this.
Anything else, Marty, on item or parcel 4?
As long as everybody's clear on the money part, that's what I want to make sure of.
Move to approve parcel 4.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Clerk, will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne.
Aye.
Councilmember Ruby.
Aye.
Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Collins.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Marty. Takes us to item 4N, and under N we have 1, 2, and 3. 4N, OK Department of Transportation 2016 Transportation Alternative Project, TAP, Rails to Trails, Phase 1, grant number TAPS-2983 004 TP C-2017-25. Becca?
To bring you an update for this project, earlier this spring, the city received a grant through the Oklahoma Department of Transportation TAPS program for our Rails to Trails project. The requirement for the grant was 25%, or 20%, excuse me, match for the project in the amount of $99,158. And we were blessed to have a local organization called Durant Trails and Open Spaces who stepped up to the plate and committed to go through the community and solicit for some funds towards this project to help with the match. And they are here tonight to present $20,000 towards the match requirement so that we can move our project forward. And I'd like to bring Derek to the front. Is there anything you'd like to say?
Mayor, Council, thank you for having us here tonight. You know, the community support has been fairly overwhelming for the project, and that kind of came through, you know, Imagine Durant and the Trails Committee, and then up through Durant Trails and Open Space. So, we thank you.
Thank you. So without this effort in the community, this project would not be able to move forward. And so it is our recommendation that the council would accept those funds so that we can move on to the other items in the agenda.
Okay, 4N1 is to consider to accept the match funds in the amount of $20,000 from the Durant Trails and Open Space. Council can read the rest of that. But for the record, it is 4N1. What's council's pleasure?
Move to approve 4N1 and say thank you. That's quite a bit of work there.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby. Aye. Councilmember Dills.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. And again, on behalf of the council, thank you for your time and effort, and those that were in assistance in getting this done. Takes us to 4N2, and that's to consider to approve the request for authorization to purchase RFAP 2018-100 in the amount of $29,140 for the cash match applied to the engineering services agreement C-2017-81 relating to the 2016 Rails to Trails Project TAP 3 2893-004 TP C-2017-25.
And this is a partnership with Department of Transportation, and Half Associates is the engineering firm that was selected. And because of the complexity of this project, the engineering cost significantly increased. And through some negotiations with Department of Transportation, they are allowing part of the grant funds to be allocated towards additional engineering cost. Our match does not change. It's just the amount of our percentage that will go towards the engineering is a little bit more, but it will still remain the same $99,158 as our match. So it's the recommendation to approve the RFAP to cover the $29,140 that will be for payment to Department of Transportation.
Council's pleasure.
Move to approve RFAP 2018-100.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne.
Aye.
Councilmember Groby.
Aye.
Councilmember Dills.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Item 4N3 is to consider to approve the engineering contract funding agreement, job piece 329-8304 with the Oklahoma Department of Transportation, C-2017-81, relating to the 2016 Rails to Trails Phase 1 project, TAP 3-2893-004 TP C-2017-25.
Okay, and this is the engineering agreement for the full amount of the $145,700, which the $29,140 will be the match towards this amount, and the balance of that, of the $116,000 and some change, will be taken from the grant funds for the engineering services. And to give you a timeline, they are projecting that the design will take about 10 months to complete.
Move to approve C-2017-81.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne.
Aye.
Councilmember Groby.
Aye.
Councilmember Dills.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you very much, and another big thank you to the community partners that made this happen.
Yep. Takes us to agenda item number 5 on our regular agenda. Information items. These are the monthly department reports. We have A through P. These are provided monthly, not only to the city manager, but to council by the departments and their staff. And lots of information. Do any council members have any requests for any department reports? Okay. We have one for sure, and I'll have one too.
At this time, I've called Greg Buckley, who is a new face here at City Hall. Greg is our new Administrative Services Director, replaced Donella Miller. He's going to be over my HR, finance, IT, utility billing offices, all the administrative functions. We're very fortunate to have Greg. Greg has about 25 years experience in local government, 6 years as the Assistant City Manager of Lawton, 5 years as the City Manager of Muskogee and a few other cities as well. And we're very, very fortunate and blessed to have him as part of our community. And as his first council meeting, pretty much week on the job, I told him, I've got an assignment for you. And he's here tonight to talk to you about the late fees in regards to some of the questions that have been brought up, late fees versus reconnect fees, and the commercial deposits that was asked in regards to that too. He's done some research and is here tonight to present to the council some of his findings.
Welcome, Greg.
Thank you, Tim, Mayor, and Council. I'll try not to keep this too boring. It's not always an exciting topic, but I'll try to keep it entertaining. I may break out into dance to help keep you alive and interesting this morning or this evening. Tim asked me to put a report together. This just sort of reviews some of the cost associated with late fees, non-payments, and then kind of where we stand as an organization and as a city related to providing customer service and our impact of our neighbors on how we match up related to those costs of services to other cities. Basically, to get started, it's sort of just the cost of non-payment versus customer service. There's a dynamic there of what it costs us for non-payment. Cities operating on a fine line between covering cost of operation and providing customer service, quality customer service. And one of the main complaints is cost for servicing accounts for non-payment. The question comes from both on-time customer pays and the late payers, or the non-payers. The on-time go, I want to keep my rates down. Why am I subsidizing those that are not paying for their services when I am on a timely basis? And the non-pay customers go, oh my God, you're charging me too much. I'm providing a service. I'll pay when I can, but I shouldn't have to pay more than the services that are provided to me than anybody else. Well, there is a cost associated with dealing with customers that don't pay on time, because we do have to pay, have employees that go out. We have additional cost of services for submitting late payments and late notices, going out and touching those accounts. So when they actually come in to be addressed, we have to provide those additional services. There's a cost for having to go out and identify and address those customers. Basically, late and non-paying customers have a higher cost of service than the on-time paying customers. So just kind of, in essence, who should cover the added cost of servicing a late and non-paying customer? All organizations, whether they're public or private, have to deal with and address this type of issue. So we're not alone in having to deal with this. all cities, major organizations, anybody that provides a service has to deal with. How do you address the good quality customer comes in, here's my payment, thank you very much, I'm out the door, and those that you got to drag in and deal with and say, I provided you service, now you need to pay for it. In a restaurant, you get to eat, and then you pay your bill. Here, we service and provide water, sewer service, and then you pay your bill. In a grocery store, you got to actually pay before you get out the door. So you don't really get to go to the grocery store and say, bill everybody else, I'll come back later. You've got to pay before you go out. And the late fee is initially that first step in trying to get a customer to pay timely. The consequences is generally a small cost to the customer, since there's little added cost for staff to deal with that customer who misses just paying by the due date. We've got a window associated with when your bill's mailed, when it's due, and when we expect payment. And then there's a time frame beyond that we have to send a late notice and then potentially send somebody out, an employee, to cut the disconnect service. The non-payment fee is what we provide, or a disconnect fee or an interruption of service fee. Many cities call it different things. Basically, it's addressing the added cost of dealing with the customer for non-payment. Generally, it includes the process of discontinuing and or turning off a customer service. The City of Durant has approximately 6,136 active residential and commercial accounts. A little over 5,000 of those are residential, about 1,100 of those are commercial, which is a typical mix in cities. So we're not uncommon in that we don't have more than residential than commercial. What's the impact of a late fee and a non-payment fee? For the City of Durant, approximately 19% of our customers are assessed and pay a 10% late fee, which is actually pretty good given the size of our community and our customer base, which is assessed on the bill that's the day after the billing due date. So if you don't pay on the due date, we do have 2 billing cycles for the city. So if whatever your due date is, that day after, you get a 10% late fee assessment. So if you come in the day after, it's already 10%. And that's by resolution council adopted in 2010. Approximately 4% of our customers are assessed and pay a non-payment fee of $50. And this is assessed approximately 1 week after a cutoff notice is mailed and the account is submitted for cutoff status. So that is, somebody's had services for 30 days because we're a month behind. Again, we provide services before we get paid. We submit a bill. They have generally, I think it's 10 to 15 days to pay the bill. And then we give an additional period of time. So we're almost another 30 days before we're starting to disconnect service or the process of disconnecting service for somebody not paying a previous bill. And again, that's a process, or that payment was established by resolution. I was actually surprised that we were only at about 4% for non-payment. That's very low. So when you look at 19% are paying a late fee and only 4% are actually within that cutoff percentage, that's very low. That's very good. So we've got good quality customers that come in and address their payment of services to help support the services that we provide. And that kind of covers the late fee and non-payment fee as it relates to the impact for what we provide as an organization and the impact to our customer base. Then we also have an initiation of service where your deposit, be able to set up an account. And the service deposit is an amount paid by a new customer to cover the potential services provided when services are disconnected, whether voluntarily or involuntarily. So these services are provided and used prior to a customer paying for services. We kind of already covered that. What are our deposit requirements? The residential customer pays $100 deposit to set up a new account. A commercial customer pays a minimum of $300 or an amount equal to 2 months of service, whichever is greater. So if you've got a business or an industry that actually uses large consumption of water, then you're going to have to pay 2 times your monthly usage to be able to do that. So you, commercial customer may have a deposit greater than $300. Now, being that this is my second day of my second week, I've only memorized half of all of our accounts, and so I do not have what the percentage of our customers that, or our breakdown related to our commercial accounts that are greater than the 300 or a percentage balance between that. But for our average residential customer, their monthly bill on average from September, October, and November was $61.90. The average commercial customer's monthly bill is $397.33 based on those 3 months, which is our fall months. If we did June, July, August, that's going to be a higher percentage because we have hotter months. People water the yards, have gardens, so they tend to have higher usage. But this was just a quick poll for these months that are probably more through the majority of the year would be the averages. Why is that important? As I said, our average customer, our residential bill for a deposit is $100. We're almost there when they get passed. So by the time we start to go through the cutoff process, we're already behind the game because if they're 2 months into services, because even when we cut them off for, say, September, we're doing that in October. They've already had services for October, so they have another month of services before we're cutting them off for September. And on the commercial customer, again, depending on percentage-wise, we're not even covering 1 month's worth of bill on the average customer for the monthly deposit for commercial accounts. This was a little smaller. I couldn't make this bigger and still keep it on one side, but it's kind of looking through. I did try to correlate similar sized cities, similar situations, so we're not just comparing against, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Broken Arrow. It's similar sized cities and similar situations. Ardmore's more rural, more isolated. McAllister, Chickasha, Sapulpa. Did want to pull in sort of Atoka, Calera, Denison, Sherman, sort of area communities that are within our area or border us that would be our neighbors. And commercial accounts, there's not a science to this. A lot of cities have different. Can we just keep it on the commercial? Right there. There's some similarities in there. Again, we're minimum 300 or 2 times monthly usage. You kind of go through down. McAllister is $100 for retail, $300 for hotel. So they're sort of on a sliding scale. 2 months previous user. Claremore goes from 250 to 1,000. So there are some similarities on some of that in meter size and usage. I was also looking to try to do other services, ONG and OG&E. I was not able to get any information back from ONG, but ONG, they use the average 12 months for that resident or that address for their deposit. Residential, it's sort of $100, $50, $200. There is separation between owners and renters. Some cities have a higher deposit for renters because renters tend to be better paying customers. Property owners tend to pay better. Service Connect fee we do provide for on first time initiation of service, $25. Again, we're pretty typical within the guidelines for that. If we can move over to the last 2 columns. That late fee or late charge for not payment by due date, pretty much everybody is 10% of the bill, or 10% of that monthly charge. And then for non-payment or disconnect fee, a lot of cities call it different things. $50 for non-payment. Some provide that they sort of split that out. $25 for a disconnect, $25 for reconnect. It's basically $50 because when they go out and turn them off, they're charging you $25. Then they're going to charge you $25 to turn it back on. So we're really not out of line related to other cities that provide for some type of disconnect or impact related for non-payment. Brings me back down to my last slide. Wanted to try to keep this short, try not to keep it concise. But what is good customer service? There is a balance between customer service to the individual account and accounting and customer service to all our customers. While we strive to provide good quality customer service to each account for the services we provide, we should also help cover, or it comes down to, should all accounts help cover the added expenses of the small number of accounts who do not pay for services which they have already received in a timely manner. I can open up to questions and answers. We can just kind of be glazed-eyed and move on to the next item and hope it all goes away.
Thank you, Greg, for bringing this forward. I know we've been talking about it for a couple of months now as in regards to the, especially on the reconnect fee of the $50. I know that's been something that's been brought forward. And again, talking about the commercial accounts and our cost for that as well. So at this time, we can open it up for any questions for myself or Greg or anybody else from utility billing.
The commercial companies put up a deposit, or do they, well, I did see that, I'm sorry, do they pay a late fee?
Yes, ma'am. If they don't pay timely, then they'll subject to the same 10% as a residential customer.
Even the big companies?
Mm-hmm.
My main concern is the people that are living on $700 and something a month. Especially the older people and people that, I mean, there's got to be some kind of way that we can, it's foolish to, I mean, the 4%, that might not sound like a lot, but, and of course, hopefully things are better as far as the meter reading. I think now that we got James Cross back reading meters, if I'm not mistaken, hopefully things will get better, but we had a lot of elderly people that were hit with $200 and $300 bills this past summer because they were estimated.
We are going to work on trying to remedy that, and we're going to be bringing forward some quotes over the next couple of months in regards to AMR systems, which will definitely help reduce those errors or the late readings on that. So, and I do feel like with the pay site that we went into agreement with a couple months ago, where now our citizens have the ability to pay their utility bills either at a kiosk with cash, credit, or check, or they can pay over the phone with check or credit 24/7. We have access now for our citizens 24/7. The travel plaza is open to where if they need to go pay at a kiosk at any time that they, because one of the complaints we got were the folks that work shift work and not able to come to City Hall between 8 to 5, and now they have the availability to have those services to where they can go to a kiosk or call a 1-800 number and get their bills paid in a, I would say, more prompt fashion.
And online on our website.
Yeah, that's right. You can still pay online as well. So.
Well, in that cutoff fee or whatever you call it, if it says if your bill's not paid by the 21st, your water will be cut off. If they go in on the 20th of the morning of the 21st, I don't think their bill should be, I don't think they should be charged unless it's actually cut off, because I always thought that's what the fee was for the guy to go out there, the laborer, for someone to go out and actually turn the water off and then go back and turn the water on.
Well, ma'am, and I can understand that position, but it's really a non-payment fee because the cost of additional service to address that account has already been made. We've already had to account for providing a late notice and mailing. We've already had employee time in establishing, putting a report together on whether or not those accounts have been paid or not up until that day. And so the cost of impact of service has already cost the organization time and energy to be able to further touch and handle that account. Whether or not the employees, that account's actually been turned off, it'd be great if we had an instant switch like OG&E does when you go, or your Vive cable bill. If you don't pay, they just touch a couple buttons on the key and it's boom, you got no service. You're done. We have to physically go out and address that. We can't do all those accounts. If we have, I'm pulling a number, 100, 150 turnoffs that day to be able to address and to turn all of those off at the same time. So who gets turned off at 8 and who gets turned off at 5 is all based on the routes and the scheduling of the employee to be able to get through the community and address those. But the impact of that employee having to go out and the other services of late notice, generating a report, doing those impact has already impacted and cost the organization additional time and energy, which should be paid for by the customer that's impacting us.
I won't ask any more questions because I know everybody's getting tired. I will say this, though, going up 100% on the sewage should have accommodated a little bit of the people having to do a little bit of extra work when they raised the water rate.
I can't speak that. I
wasn't here then, so we can't blame you for that.
Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you, Greg. She left. Any other council members have any reports that they'd like to? Okay, we will move to item number 6 on our agenda, citizen comments, and I had one. Thank you, guys. Thank y'all. Is Mike DeBrava here? Pardon? Okay. Okay. Did
Yeah, he left. Yeah,
oh, was he here?
Yeah,
Okay.
he left and he's declined. So.
Okay. Okay, we don't have any other citizen comments on item number 6, which actually takes us to executive session, but I think if there are no objections, we can take care of utilities and airport. Okay, entertain a motion to recess out of regular city council session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Ruby,
Aye.
Councilmember Hill,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson,
Aye. We're now recessed out of regular city council session. We'll let the record show it is 8:11. I'll call to order the regular monthly meeting of the Durant City Utilities Authority of December the 12th, 2017. Ask Secretary to call the roll, please.
Trustee Hawthorne,
Here.
Trustee Ruby,
Here.
Trustee Dills,
Here.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock,
Here.
Chairman Tomlinson,
Here, for the record, all members are present, and we have a quorum. First order of business, consent items, 1A.
Move to approve.
Motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, the Secretary will record the vote, please.
Trustee Hawthorne,
Aye.
Trustee Ruby,
Aye.
Trustee Dills,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock,
Aye.
Chairman Tomlinson,
Aye, motion carries. Item 2 requires no action. Under number 3, administration, we have no business. Under information items, any reports? Hearing none, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. Secretary will record the vote, please.
Trustee Hawthorne,
Aye.
Trustee Ruby,
Aye.
Trustee Dills,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock,
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned out of the Durant City Utilities Authority. Let the record show it's 8:13. Call to order the regular monthly meeting of the Durant Airport Authority of December the 12th, 2017. And ask the secretary to call the roll, please.
Trustee Hawthorne.
Here.
Trustee Bruce. Here. Trustee Dill.
Here.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock.
Here.
Chairman Tomlinson.
Here, for the record, all members are present. We have a quorum. First order of business, consent items, 1A.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, the secretary will record the vote, please.
Trustee Hawthorne.
Aye.
Trustee Ruby.
Aye.
Trustee Dill.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock.
Aye.
Chairman Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Item 2 requires no action. Item number 3, we have no one signed up on that one. Item number 4, under administration, we have no administration business to conduct. Information items. Hearing none. Anything under new business?
Mr. Mayor, could I ask a question? I don't know if this is new business, but I would like for the city manager to address the rumors that I'm hearing about the airport, about throwing out all the guys that are in the hangars and giving it to, remodeling it and giving it to Blake Shelton. Could you address that for us, please?
Madam Council Member, what you just called it is what it is. Right now, it's a rumor. I'm really not privy to talk about folks' personal business. If we have somebody that wants to come to the airport and look at an aircraft and discuss the possibility of aircraft being at that airport, I really don't think it's in the best interest of the city to simply go out and discuss that person's private business in a public forum without anything. Nothing. There's no draft. There's no contract. There's nothing at this point.
But it would be in our public interest if that person wants this city of Durant to fork the money out to remodel the building they want to be in.
Those would all be negotiated. Yes, there's nothing has been done. Nothing's been inked. But you're right. There has to be some negotiations. But at this point, I'm not going to comment on that particular individual or any company that comes out there that wants to look at our airport and without going out and immediately talking about their business in a public forum. I don't think that's a very fair thing for them to do.
I agree with that. We're not talking about their business. We're talking about our business. If the city's going to be paying, that's the city business.
I understand. I understand completely. But I can't come up here every time there's a rumor at the airport or any place here in town of a company. I mean, some of these companies, like I said, they are allowed, if they want to come in and take a look at a piece of property or something at the airport, without anything being done or proposed, they are, I feel we shouldn't be discussing it in a public forum unless something has been negotiated or agreed upon.
From what I understand, there are no vacant hangars or places at the airport. Is that correct? Can you discuss that?
I think, yeah, we are right now. We have a waiting list on hangars out at the airport. And we have the one community hangar, affectionately known as the old orange hangar, sitting out there where we have, I believe, about 10 or 11 aircrafts parked in it as well. So.
Well, usually where there's smoke, there's fire, and I did have a pilot call today and say that he had been told that he needed to start looking for another place.
Again, that's based off of a rumor.
If it's not inappropriate, and I think maybe it is appropriate, I think those calls can be directed to the city manager in order for him to maybe personally set the record straight with a conversation with someone that's asking that. I think that would be.
They did call the city manager.
And I did respond back to that individual.
That wasn't the word they used, but yes, they talked to you. But that's all I want to say about that right now. So whatever we need to do, if it's time to adjourn, we can move on.
Anything else under new business, under the Airport Authority? Hearing none, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Secretary will record the vote, please.
Trustee Hawthorne,
Aye.
Trustee Ruby,
Aye.
Trustee Bill,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock.
Aye.
Aye, we are adjourned out of the Durant Airport Authority. Anybody need a break? Oh yeah. Okay. Well, let's go back into regular session first. Entertain a motion to reconvene.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to reconvene in regular city council session. The clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Ruby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dill,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye. We are back into regular city council session, and we are at agenda item number 7. Is that correct? Executive session? And for those in the live stream audience, this will conclude the live streaming portion. That's for those folks that are watching through the live streaming media. But we are at item number 7, executive session. Consider a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. The clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Ruby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dill,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, we are in executive session. Do you know this guy? No, don't know what he.
I'll chug whatever it takes to keep myself awake at least.